Hi, I'm Kelly,
I'm Allison.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Kristen.
and this is Fear and Wine. Hello, welcome to Fear and Wine. We are a podcast about horror TV shows, movies, and more. If it's scary, creepy, or disturbing, we are watching it, talking about it, and pairing it with the perfect glass of wine. Today, we are continuing our journey through Lovecraft Country, and we are on episode 3. It's called Holy Ghost, and Kristen's leading this one, and I know everyone's seen the show except for Leah, but I think Leah might watch it, or maybe watch one or two. But did you guys notice when you watched it that each episode is kind of like a nod to a different movie genre? Almost like this one was the
Ghost
true
stories.
old like haunted house
Yeah.
type of horror movies, and then the one I'll do for episode 4 is very much like Indiana Jones, National, like
the
a
Goonies, yeah.
adventure. Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's neat, and I never noticed that the first time I watched it. I was like,
Actually,
I think they do like
said
little
it
nods
yesterday when I
to-
was watching. I was like, oh, this is very Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like or National Treasure, which is one of my favorites. I know a lot of people don't like that one, but or those Dan Brown Angels and Demons type of movies, those adventure ones. I like those.
Well, I'm excited for the ghost. You know, I like ghost stories, so this one
This
sounds
one is
really exciting.
fun, but it's one visually. I don't know if you would like this episode. It's one of the scarier ones visually.
No, it's not that
okay.
bad. Leah, there's a scarier one.
There's a scarier
And
one.
I don't even
but
know if it's the one that Kelly's talking about, but it terrified me.
It's the one with the
Yeah,
little bottles.
yeah. No, I'm not going to watch that one.
To me, it's scarier, but this one, just as far as like gore,
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
It is.
okay.
It is gore.
visually scarier, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But to go along with this episode, we have the question today that Kristen gave us, and it is, if you could haunt one place as a ghost, where would it be? And would you be a chill ghost or a petty one? Who wants? This is a fun question for me.
I can start.
Who wants to start? Okay, go ahead.
I'd be a petty one.
Of course.
I can't say that I have a specific place that I would, but I have specific people that I would haunt, and yeah, I would be very petty. I can't say their names on this podcast, but just know if you've ever done me wrong in the past, you're probably gonna get it.
What kind of petty things would you do?
I probably wouldn't do anything to like harm them, but just slightly inconvenience them every single day.
Hiding
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
like Kelly's glasses and stuff.
Mess with their electricity,
Yeah.
with their lights all the time. Yeah, so they constantly have to pay for an electrician to come out for them to say nothing wrong
Right,
here.
exactly.
I like that.
That's what I do. Yeah, I have a haunt list too. I have people who, like Leah has asked me to haunt her, but like friendly haunts, like people I just want to visit. And then there's a few people I might just mess with, just cause.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the person. I think I could be really nice too if it was someone that I loved, but I know my list.
Yep. Who wants to go next?
I can go. I was less focused on people. I don't know why. I guess I
Oh,
just
no. I did
once
a
I'm
place,
done with
too.
someone, I usually snip, and then I never think of them again.
I wish I
That's
could be
kinda
like
my-
that.
It's the best. I have to be honest with you. Like sometimes years will go by and then I'll remember a person. I'm like, oh man, I totally forgot that person even existed. So to me, that works for me. So I thought of it so differently. We're going back to New York City here in July, and every time I go to New York, I always feel like I never have enough time to get to all the places and see all the things I want to see. And so I think I would want to haunt New York City so that I could just go to all the attractions and places I wanted to visit. There's good pizza there. I'd figure out how to eat it. You could sneak into SNL back in the rooms and hear with the celebrities. I don't know. I feel like there's so many fun things I could do in New York as a ghost.
Oh, I love it. You want the whole city. Okay.
Yeah,
I
the
went.
whole city.
Okay. I like that.
Thanks.
So Leah, unless you want to go, I can go.
Well, I can go because I
Okay, go.
think you would be a good ending to our conversation because you always have really
I
good
don't know.
answers.
Well, this might not be compared to everyone else's, but go ahead.
So I couldn't really decide on one specific place that I would like to haunt. I mean, I thought like a library would be cool because ghosts in the library are spooky. You know, you always have like the woman in gray or something like that. But then I thought it'd be sort of sad at night when everybody's gone. I don't know, maybe a big house would be cool because I could relax, but then also what if I'm still scared as a ghost? Like,
What?
what if it's nighttime in this creepy house and even though I'm the ghost, I'm the one who's scared? Have you ever seen the movie The Others
Yes.
with Nicole
Love that
Kidman?
movie.
Yes,
great.
where
No.
they're
Mm-mm.
scared. They're
Yeah, but they didn't know they were the ghost.
I
That was the
know, but what
problem.
if that happens to me? And then
Oh,
I'm
like
scared,
That's one of my favorite ghost movies,
That is a
it
really
is
actually.
good
a
movie.
good one. But here's the thing, unless you're haunting your own house, like if you're like, I've always wanted to live in this house, I see there's nobody else in here, I'm just gonna move into this mansion. And you're haunting that, then I think you would know. The problem
Yeah.
was it was their own house and they thought they were being invaded. So I think you would.
That's
Or it
true.
could be
No.
like that show School Spirits where the kids died in the school so they can't leave. But what if you get like one that's really just like was a terror before he died,
Right, and
and
then
now
you're
you're
stuck
stuck in
Oh
there
yeah,
with them.
Ooh, that sounds
Right.
torturous.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
it's true.
I don't want to. Am I going to be stuck in this place? Like, this is the only place I can stay? Maybe like a theme park. Then I can.
I
That
thought of
popped
a
into
theme
my
park
head,
too.
actually.
That would probably be
Yeah,
fun.
it'd
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
No
would be.
lines. You're first in line every time, basically.
Exactly.
No lines. And then I feel like once you're dead, the heat wouldn't bother you if you're
Correct.
Florida
That's
theme
true.
park, because that's my only hold up with theme
Right.
parks here.
I love
Yeah.
that. And then, I mean, I would mostly want to be chill because I feel like if I were too petty, then that almost turns into work. And who wants to work when they're dead? Not me. I don't.
Yeah.
But if I had the opportunity, yeah, like Allison, there's a girl that said something mean about me in 5th grade, and I still remember it, and I'm 40 years old.
Right.
Okay.
See, sometimes
So
things you just can't let go.
some things you just can't. I would probably hide her house keys. I would do
Mhm.
petty things like that to people who maybe were nasty to me in life, or, maybe some funny little things just to, I guess, change it up once in a while. I
I
don't
guess the way I
know.
think of it too, though, the reason that I don't want to do that is I don't want to spend more time with someone that I can't stand. Like, I don't want to, I don't know. That's the way I look at it. Like,
That's true.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be around you.
No, you don't
so
do
I'd
it
be stuck with you.
24/7. You just do it when
Yeah.
you're like,
Okay.
I remember this. Let me go do something
Yeah, I
real
got
quick.
some
Yeah,
time
yeah.
to
Never cross you out.
And then I'll go back to the people I love.
Yeah, if I wanted to scare someone, I would definitely appear like in their bathroom mirror when they're brushing their teeth or something, because that's always like the most terrifying to me.
Or
Like
like
the bathroom for some reason.
show up in photos when you're taking like family photos, and all of a sudden,
Oh.
yeah.
I like
See,
that.
because I think Allison and I both have pictured a relative that
Hey,
we're haunting.
yeah.
Yeah, see,
Mhm.
that's why, like, because I'm like Kristen, I can let stuff. I don't remember stuff other people who aren't in my life do to me, but there's people who can't help but be in my life. So yeah,
Okay.
that's.
Yeah, that was one of them.
hmm
Yeah, I guess I'll settle in the theme park. So yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
I think so too.
That's a
Until
good
it
one.
becomes defunct, and then it's just like, where'd
Oh.
everybody go?
Like the Haunted Mansion at Disney, when you pass the mirror and there's already like the ghost that's sitting in the ride with you, but then you
Yes.
could be one of them. And they'd be like, I've never seen that girl on this ride before. And then it becomes like a TikTok thing. Like, when's
like
the last time
real
you went on
funny.
Haunted
Funny.
Mansion?
Yeah.
And you become
Yeah, you go
viral in the
viral as a
afterlife.
ghost.
That's cool. I like that.
Well, that kind of leads to mine, because mine would be so I wanted to haunt a place that I enjoyed spending time at when I was alive. So I would definitely haunt a restaurant just because I like being at
yeah.
restaurants. But I want mine to like have this big lore around it. So I've already planned the lore. So it's people either spot me at a bar or in a booth, and the story is from the staff when people have had interactions with me. They'll say, well, she was waiting at this bar because the man that she loved was on his way to meet her for dinner for their usual Friday night date. And she got a phone call from him he was running late, but he's on his way. And she ran outside to take the phone call to get better reception when something fell on her from a window above and she was killed instantly. Freak accident. And it was so
definitely
quick
a
and
piano or a safe.
or like a window or AC units have stuff that's actually happened, like glass or something. Yeah, not like a Looney Tunes cartoon. But so it was so fast and quick that I didn't realize I was dead. So I went right back in and sat at the bar and waited for him to arrive.
Okay.
And so patrons have encounters with me and they have a drink with me. And it's one of those things where it's like one moment I'm there and then I'm gone and people ask about me. But that's the lore. But the truth is I'm just there because I always like the margaritas there or something. That's not, I die in a totally normal way, but I want that to be the lore. Like I didn't even die there.
Like you want like
Yeah.
the New Orleans murals story where like we have to leave a glass of wine for him or else the whole restaurant's
Right.
turned upside
Mhm.
down.
Yeah, so they're like, oh yeah, she's really cool. Just leave her. We always set out a margarita for her, but like
Yeah.
really, I died of like old age somewhere else. But I want that to be the story that people come up with.
Like she'll come to
So-
you in the night unless you leave her a spicy marg
Right,
by
exactly.
the side of your bed.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
So
that.
that, and I'd be a
spicy.
chill ghost. Everyone would just be talking to me at the bar and like, oh, I met this nice lady, and like, oh yeah, what did she look like? And then She's never there again. You don't see her.
I love
love
that.
it.
I like that you made up your own lore. I didn't.
Yeah, I
too.
want a good lore behind my
Yeah,
haunting.
for sure. What's the fun of a ghost story without some good lore?
And the
Mhm,
kids
but-
love lore these days, so let me tell you.
You too
It's like
could
a
become
thing.
TikTok viral.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, that's like Leah's. Oh, she sits right here, and then somebody makes up a story because TikTok. That's all they do
Yeah.
is make up stories. So I love how people come to and they're like, "Oh, this is the fact." We have some
Right.
people that we know that are just like, whatever happened on TikTok is a fact, but it's really just the kids came up with a story about you and how
Yeah.
you died on the ride. I don't know how you would die on the Haunted Mansion ride, but you died on the ride.
I think I was decapitated because I stood up. Or
Yeah,
something. One of those.
something. Yeah.
Even though everybody in my life would be like, she didn't ride roller coasters.
Well, that one doesn't even. It's just a people mover essentially. It
Yeah,
doesn't
you're
really
just
do
moving a little
anything.
bit.
So it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, she stood up and then the cart jerked and her
Right.
neck just got
The
crooked for a second or
malfunction.
something.
Yeah. Something.
I love it. Well, speaking of decapitation, that's a good
Yes.
segue. We do have one of those in today's episode, so.
Oh, nice.
All right.
Ooh, all right. That was fun, though. I like talking about ghosty stuff, and
Yes.
this episode is called Holy Ghost, so it is related. So you guys ready to talk about Lovecraft?
Yeah,
Definitely.
I like this episode.
Tell me all the good
Awesome.
parts.
This week's ghost-filled episode is paired with Old Ghost Zinfandel by Kilmer Brick. This red wine from Lodi, California is packed with layers of brambleberry, spiced cherries, plums, chocolate, cola, and a hint of mint and licorice flavors. This is a big wine with depth and body. Pair this wine with beef, lamb, and spicy foods. Enjoy! For more information about us and all of the wines that we feature, visit our website at fearandwine.com. And make sure you follow Fear and Wine wherever you listen to podcasts so that you don't miss a new episode. And if you like us, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. Thanks.
I think you'll like this one a lot, Leon, just in terms of listening. Like Kelly said, there is some gore in the episode, but it's funny you mentioned that, Kelly, because in rewatching it, I felt that the gore was so fake looking and obvious that it didn't bother me at all. So,
That's what I
Yeah,
was thinking.
it's
She
not.
might be able to handle it because it's not like
yeah, there's some silliness
real.
almost to
I
some
don't
of the
know.
gore.
Yeah,
It's not super real looking, but if you're bothered by it, I don't know.
it's you can tell it's
Yeah.
CGI. I guess is
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
I think so too. All right, well, let's begin then. We begin episode 3 actually at George's funeral, but the camera's focus is very much on a sad and contemplative Leti, and she is sitting in a pew, and the camera is really focusing mostly on her, but we hear and see the singing in the background and the funeral taking place. We then fade to a black screen that says, and I'm going to quote this part, "In the summer of 1955, a group of Negro men and women moved into a house on the north side of Chicago. 10 days later, 3 people went missing inside the house, never to be seen again. Pioneering is dangerous." And then day 1 flashes large on the screen. And this really made me think of them. Did you guys have that?
Yes,
flash to that?
instantly.
Same thing.
Okay. Same. And even in the beginning, we then fade to this really pristine kind of white suburban neighborhood back in the 50s. And it made me think of that Compton neighborhood also in them. So I found a lot of there was a lot of things about them that I think relate to this episode in many ways that I found kind of interesting. So we see Leti and her sister Ruby walking down the street, and Leti seems to have come into some money all of a sudden. And she is discussing paying Ruby back all the money she lent her over the years, and in doing so, by kind of giving her a stake in this house that she's bought. And she leads her to a huge, dilapidated, haunted-looking mansion. I mean, quite frankly, it looks haunted. Even that cartoon movie where those kids are afraid to go near that house, this is what the house would
Monster
look like in
house.
real life to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, monster house. It looks like a monster house, literally. So it has an overgrown, mostly dead lawn, and we can see that it's been unoccupied for some time. It doesn't look like anyone's lived there in a while. So Ruby is very leery as Leti tells her that she bought this house, and Ruby's doubting how Leti could have had the money to pay for it. But she kind of just goes along with it. So they go inside, and Leti talks about how she is going to turn it into a 13-room boarding house for black folks. Ruby doesn't think it's a very good idea, given the neighborhood that it's in, but Leti convinces her that it's a chance for them to bond and live together and do something good. In their excitement, Letty attempts to show Ruby an elevator in the house. She's like, oh, it even has an elevator. But when she actually sticks her head in the shaft to see what floor it's on, she almost gets decapitated as it comes loose and falls down the shaft. But Ruby pulls her back just in time, and she's okay. But it's definitely a close moment that we have right at the beginning. One of those moments you have in most ghost movies or ghost stories where something bad happens immediately in the house, or they just escape some bad fate. So I feel like there's a lot of tropes that come up in this episode that I enjoyed. Yes. So, we could focus on those two at some point. So next we see, we flash to a new scene, and it's actually George's widow, and her name is Hippolyta. I don't know if that was mentioned previously. Such an interesting name.
It's the Amazonian queen. So you might have heard that name in Wonder Woman, but she is the leader of the Amazons, and if you know the 12 labors of Hercules, he has to steal her garter as one of his labors.
I knew it was it was a reference to Greek as well, Greek mythology.
Yeah, so she appears in a lot of Greek myths.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
No, I love that because I didn't look it up at this point, but the name popping up was an interesting name to me. So she's sitting at a vanity in a room, and she's slowly tearing pages out of a Bram Stoker Dracula novel, and she's just kind of staring in the mirror while she's doing it. It's a weird little scene that's occurring, and we don't really have any context to what's going on. But just in that moment, she gets called down to breakfast by her daughter, Dee, and as she comes downstairs, we see that Tick is down there as well, and we know that's her nephew, and he's kind of been staying there for a little while after George's death, probably trying to help out and fill that spot that is missing. So we find out that she's actually been stalling releasing the latest update to the guide, but Tick said he took care of it, and he actually did it instead of her, and she seems a little bit annoyed by it. So there's almost a little bit of a vibe that she's ready for him to kind of get out of there. So he tells them in this moment that he will be moving out today after spending a few weeks there. So we now know it has been about 3 weeks or a few weeks since George's death. He then heads over to visit his dad, who I can only see Omar. I'm sorry. But I know his name is Montrose. Omar, Leah, is a reference to The Wire.
The Wire, right?
And yeah. Whenever I see this, I'm sorry, but I first met him as Omar, and so he will always be Omar to me. But it's okay. His name is Montrose. And we see that he is really not handling the death of his brother very well. He's pretty drunk. There's a bottle of alcohol next to him, and he's basically passed out. So Tick wakes him up with a bucket of water. He throws a bucket of water over his head and immediately asks his dad if he can stay there with him, which I don't necessarily think that's the best thing to do just before you're asking someone if you can stay with them, but whatever. So we learned that they didn't share anything about the strange things that occurred with the whole trip that they had, and all they told everyone back home is that George was shot by a racist sheriff. So that's really the only story that they've told. They left out all of the paranormal and crazy stuff that occurred. So Tick is upset that they are not allowed to tell the whole story, but Montrose tells him that the people back home can't learn that, quote, white folk have magic on their side too. So they end up getting in an argument, and Tick ends up storming out of the apartment. So they definitely have a volatile relationship between them. Back over at Letty and Ruby's new house, spirits are great. Renovations are taking place and kind of wrapping up, and we see people actually moving into the rooms in the house. We learn that Letty is on an installment contract to pay off the house. That was my nod. That was another nod to me back to them, because of how they had different contracts, right? Kelly, didn't you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, they had the covenant, the neighborhood covenant, and then they gave them that mortgage they could never get out of.
Yeah, and that's what that felt like to me. She talked about being on an installment contract. So I think that was a nod to that concept. So a lot of the things that are brought up are things that really took place in history, kind of like with them. And, so I like to at least kind of make that mention.
Because this is the 30s, right? And then was the
55.
This is 55?
Well, in the beginning, they said remember that in the beginning, in the summer of 1955,
that's right.
a group
okay, 1955.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think so.
Yeah, no, you're right. If you said 1955, I don't know why I thought for some reason this was the 30s. I probably got it confused.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay.
The 30s
yeah, no,
was Sinners. I was like, somebody was in the 30s.
Yeah, that's
okay.
right. Sorry. Yeah.
No. And them was 1954, right? Or
right,
50...
you're right. Okay, so we're in the 50s.
So it's right around that same time.
Which show came out first, Lovecraft? I'm just curious.
I think so.
Lovecraft was 2020. When did that?
Was it?
They might have been the same year, you guys.
Why do I feel like Lovecraft was so much longer than that? I feel like
remember that during shutdown we got a lot of great shows.
We did. We sure did.
And
I don't know
I'm
why
pretty
I
sure
feel
this
like it was way
2020.
before
We'll
that.
we'll
though.
look it up later. Go ahead, Kristen.
We'll look it up. Kristen, you
Go
can
ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, hey, that's okay. So Tick shows back. He shows up at the house and he says he wanted to check in just before he's about to hit the road to go back to Florida. Letty invites him to stay. She's like, "We have an extra room. We're about to have a big party. Please stay for a little longer." And they share this long kind of hug. There's always this little romantic tension between them. And at this point, we begin to hear really loud car horns blaring from outside. So they all run out to the porch and we see that there's several like younger white guys sitting outside on the street, and they're sitting like kind of on the hoods of their cars staring at the house, and they have tied bricks to their car horns and it's just laying on the horn. And Ruby comes up to the porch and she says, "Here we go." And at this moment, a cop car even drives past where the guys are standing with their horns, and he's just smirking at the scene. And so they're doing nothing about what's happening. And Tick announces that he may need to stay a little bit longer. So at this point, he decides not to go to Florida, and maybe he needs to be there to be protective.
Which I have a question about this. Wouldn't they be able to hear it too? Like, doesn't it inconvenience them just as much as it inconveniences?
Right?
And then they got to
know.
change their battery because they're draining the battery, laying on the horn the entire time. I just feel like they did more to themselves than they did to everyone else.
Well, they did that in them too, playing that loud music like for hours and hours and hours. So they got to listen to it too.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're kind of right about that. It's a good point. So after he says he needs to stay a little longer, we fade to a black screen again, and it says day 5. So we're getting the timeline. And remember, in the beginning, they said 10 days later. So I think we're going to get a 10-day storyline, and right now we're on day 5. So after this, it is the morning now, and we still hear the horns blaring from outside. And we see signs that are being stuck in the lawns and posted that say, quote, "We are a white community. Undesirables must go." Letty is asleep in the bed upstairs in her house, and a hand. This was the part that kind of creeped me out. She's asleep in the bed, and a hand starts slowly pulling her covers off from the bottom. So all we really see is her, and then we see the covers slowly being pulled down off of her.
Ew, that's why I don't sleep with my feet hanging off the bed. Sorry.
I'm the same way. So that's why this part kind of, in her sleep, she's still kind of like half asleep, half awake. She grabs him and yanks him back up on her, not realizing what's going on. And as the camera starts to pan up and away and above her, we see what appears to be a dead black woman on the side of the bed. She's crouched down and staring at her. And as she slowly creeps up and over the bed, we can see that the bottom of her jaw is completely gone.
Oh.
And there's just blood and flesh hanging from where her jaw should be.
Ew.
At this point, she quickly yanks the covers totally off Letty, and Letty startles awake. But there's no one in the room at this point. So once she's awake, the ghost disappears. She doesn't appear to be old enough for perimenopause, but she is sweating like I do. So I was a little worried about her, but we realized that there seems to be something wrong with the heater. Like it's heating too much. So she goes down to the basement, of course, the creepy basement that's full of junk, and there's cobwebs everywhere, but she's got to go check on this broken boiler or whatever's in the basement. So she takes out a wrench and somehow is able to magically fix this boiler all by herself, which I was very impressed with. But while she's doing that, she becomes startled by this banging noise coming from a dark and cluttered part of the basement. She decides to investigate, walks right over to the area where the banging is coming from in the dark, and she does have her wrench with her and a little flashlight that she had come down with. So she's kind of inching her way over, and she steps over a bear trap, which I thought was so strange to see just sitting in the middle of the floor of a basement, but it's there. And we see that the banging is actually coming from the floor. Like she can hear it coming from the floor below this table. So she starts to crouch down, and at this point we see a trap door being pushed up and down, and voices are screaming from underneath. And I have to stop here because we have another trap door in the floor. Did you remember we talked about this?
Mm-hmm.
How many trap doors?
Oh yeah,
Is this a trope that I just didn't realize was a trope?
I guess it might be a horror trope, and I never realized it.
Me neither. But we had it we had it in that movie with the crazy heretic. We have it here, and I swear there was one more somewhere. I just can't remember where, but there was another one. Anyway, okay. So when she sees this, she at least does the right thing, and she screams and runs off up to the upstairs. So when she gets upstairs, Tick is now removing the junk, blocking the trap door. She's brought him downstairs, and he opens it, and we actually see stairs leading down. So armed with a bat, Tick descends to find a sub-basement room, and it's just completely empty. It's like a big, just kind of stone room. It's got no windows, nothing. And he says that he thinks that maybe it was the men who are outside messing with them, that they had come down there and done something to scare Leti. And he thinks that he thinks they're actually veterans, and that they're using the same scare tactics of heat and noise that they used in Korea. Leti tries to kind of have a tender moment with him, but like what happened there, but he pulls away and he leaves her looking kind of sad. Like she keeps kind of trying to connect with him, and he keeps kind of pulling back. And at this point, the screen fades to black again, and day 8 flashes on the screen. So it's now nighttime, and the housewarming party is happening, and it is in full swing, and it reminded me of the beginning of the show when everybody is just having a fantastic time. There's loud music, people are dancing, and we initially get it from the perspective of some judgy whites across the street, because it's a really interesting shot, actually. We start to see the house and what's going on from a window across the street, and we see it from these people's perspective, and then it comes through the window, and the camera goes over into the house.
Ooh, I like that.
So I kind of love that shot. It's really, really kind of cool. So the street is littered with cars, and there's a lively house full of music, happy black people. There's, joy happening everywhere. Ruby is up on stage again, and she's singing and performing Boogie at Midnight, and people are dancing everywhere. So Leti and Hippolyta have a moment to themselves. They kind of meet each other in another room, and we learn that her daughter Dee is actually upstairs in the attic with her quote-unquote friends. When we see Dee and her friends, they are playing with the damned Ouija board. Because of course they are, because why wouldn't they be?
Gotta be playing with a Ouija board.
Right? They totally are. Yep. So things immediately get weird with the Ouija board, with an autonomous planchette that starts kind of moving around, and flickering lights start happening. And then one of the kids asks who they are talking to. The planchette feverishly spells, "George is dead." Well, that's Dee's dad. So she jumps up and yells at the other 3 kids. She thinks that they did it. They all swear they didn't do it, and that it just moved on its own. The camera then goes back downstairs, where Hippolyta is at the foot of the ladder to the attic, getting ready to check up on, everybody, on the daughter and everyone. As she begins to call up, the door to a room behind her creaks open, and it reveals some type of gold contraption with spheres on it. It reminds me of a solar system model, kind of, but they look like they're gold, like real gold or something. Kelly, do you know what that thing actually is? Is that something related to Lovecraft that I just don't know about?
No, and it comes up in mine. It is called
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is a model of the solar system. And it has a name. Oh, an orrery.
Orrery. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have known that word, but it did appear to be that to me, almost to where you could move the planets probably in alignment with how they move around each other as the moon.
And it's supposed to be mechanical, so this one is broken, but it should move on its own.
Okay, and I know that comes up, but I didn't want to say too much, but anyway, there'll be a connection even at the end of this episode back to that, which I noticed immediately watching it again, but we can talk about that once we finish the episode. She reaches out to touch it, actually, and put her hand on it. And at this point, the scene shifts again to downstairs. Ruby is still performing, and Tick walks in the door wearing his military uniform. He's all dressed up in his army, suit. We learn he did this so that the men outside could see that he is also a soldier and that a soldier lives there. So he's trying to be smart about it, and maybe they'll be kinder knowing that there's a soldier, or maybe they'll be, a little bit more worried about doing things to them. So there's a tense moment as Tick watches Leti do this whole dirty dancing number with some other guy, and we can tell he's jealous. And once the dance finishes, Leti goes to the bathroom to go cool herself off and splash some water on her face. And when her eyes are closed and she's putting the water on her face, we see a very bloody looking ghost in the mirror. So her face is down, the behind her there's a ghost looking at her in the mirror, but we can see it, but she can't. And when she looks up, the ghost disappears. Go ahead, sorry.
That's the scary stuff.
Yeah.
That's the scary stuff I would be doing to scare people that did me dirty in life. Except
That's
I'd
a great
stay there
move,
so they
that
could
mirror
see me.
move.
It
That
is
is
a
a good
great
move.
move.
It is.
Yeah.
And in a
The
movie,
mirror,
it's
because you'd,
very
you'd
jarring.
you'd be afraid to look in a mirror ever again if
Oh
that
yeah.
happened.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And we talked about Bloody Mary before too with Allison, so
Mm-hmm.
that
Mhm.
would do it for
Oh
Allison, I
yeah,
think.
no,
You could be Bloody Mary though, like you could pretend to be Bloody Mary
Oh
for.
yeah, I could get a good lore going too, and then just.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Bloody Allison. We'll change it.
I think we should all just try to be viral in the afterlife. Forget this life. We just gonna try scare these
Try
kids and
Bloody
get
Mary.
TikToks made.
I mean, that's my only chance is in the afterlife, so
You could try
that's
Bloody
good.
Mary for Kelly, but it just like makes an actual Bloody Mary appear.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
That's funny. All right, so when Letty does look up, we actually see that Tick is behind her and standing in the doorway. So she sees him in the mirror and she turns around and he just kind of comes in, shuts the door, grabs her, and full passion ensues. They have passionate sex right in front of whatever ghost is in there, which that's all I could think about. I'm like, this
Oh.
ghost is seeing all this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought about
didn't
that
think
too.
of
He was
that.
like, "Man,
Mhm.
I just came here to scare you. You didn't have to put that away."
Forget it. Yeah.
Oh, and it's a little like it's kind of like rough and I don't know. It's yeah. Anyway, so they have this like passionate semi-rough sex there and it immediately gets awkward right after they finish and Tick ends up leaving. He's like, "Oh, I'll go back downstairs. I'll wait for you there," and just goes back downstairs. So after Tick leaves, Letty ends up crying. I mean, sobbing, crying. You could tell that this has really upset her that he just kind of ran right after that moment. And and this does come up. I don't know if it's irrelevant or not, but she does end up starting her. She's bleeding and she says, "Oh, I didn't know my monthly was here." So, it's like a whole awkward thing that happens. And that was my only thing is maybe he ran because of that, because men can't handle it. But I don't know. He was definitely.
Yeah, I don't know why he ran. Maybe just because it started awkwardly and there was no talking. Also,
Yeah.
it's like on this tiny sink because this is a 50s bathroom, so it's not like the huge vanities that we
Mhm.
have today where there's a lot of space. So I don't know. It was just the whole thing was awkward.
Yeah, it was really. It was uncomfortable. I think it was meant to make you uncomfortable, but it did. It was like an uncomfortable scene.
Also, I
So-
love the old names for our periods. The
Oh, yeah, the
monthly. I call
monthly.
it the ladies' time from this,
Oh,
from that
cute.
movie Paper Moon. I think is where I learned it from. So
I had a friend in college who always called it my moon. So I think that's
Oh.
that could be a nice way to refer to it. Anyway,
I call it my bitch.
We're not
so
afraid of
I
people.
guess. Like that bitch is here,
Hot
and then you
blow.
know.
Damn. I'm going to call it that with my daughters moving forward. So, anyway. So, moments later, Letty comes out and heads back downstairs or out to wherever the party is. And Ruby is talking about wanting to work at Marshall Fields. We've heard, she mentions this a few times that this is somewhere that she's trying to apply for a job at Marshall Fields, but they're kind of stopping her and she thinks it's because of her race. And we end up, while she's talking about this, we see a glow coming from the windows. And Letty walks towards the window and opens the curtain and looks out, and we see a cross burning in the yard and some little white boy running away from it. Like, we can tell somebody lit the cross up and was running away. So Hippolyta immediately runs to find Dee when she sees this happening. Like, it's almost a moment where the mother's like, "Oh my God, let me make sure my kid's okay." Letty comes out of the house with a bat, and this great scene happens. There's music, and she proceeds to bash in the windows and headlights on all those cars that have those bricks tied to them.
Ooh, I like that.
So it's, like I said, it's a really fun scene. The headlights are getting bashed in, the horns are blaring, and then the cops pull up as this is occurring. And at that moment, Letitia, and there were a group of men behind her who were kind of out there, I think, to protect her and make sure she was okay. They all immediately come to their knees and put their hands behind their heads as the cops pull up. So after this, we now have Letty by herself in the back of like a paddy wagon with this cop, and he's making really racist and aggressive comments to her. And then he asks if anything weird has happened in her new house. Then he asks if someone told her to buy the Winthrop house. He wants to know who helped her, and they begin kind of like crashing the wagon around. Like the guy in the front, he holds on to the strap so he can't fall, but they start like really moving the car to the point where Letty is flying all over the place in the back of this wagon. He's trying to injure her, and then he tells her that they found the body parts of 8 dead black people, but he uses the N-word, and I'm not going to. So he says they found the body parts of 8 black people in a room under the basement, and he doesn't expect her to last long there. At this time, day 9 pops up on the screen, and we know we have 10 days. So like, the whole time I'm watching it, it's kind of that we're leading up to this day 10, who's going to be missing, because they said people went missing and everything. So day 9 pops up on the screen, and now they are in the Leti is in the secret basement room, and she's decided to create a dark room for her photography in this sub basement where apparently 8 people have been murdered.
Whoa,
I'm not
no,
sure.
thank you.
Right?
Nope.
Why would you want to be alone in that room after what that cop said? But okay. So as she's looking around at her picture, she starts to notice something in them. It almost looks like something has scratched the photos. And so she starts pulling them all down off of where they're hanging. And then she begins to kind of arrange the slashes on the floor into this pattern. I don't know how she knew how to do all this. It all happens very fast. And once she gets this pattern, it looks like it's a face. And then the face becomes 4D and kind of grows up and out of the pile. This is a creepier part to me. It reminded me of like back in the Poltergeist movies where something like that happened in Poltergeist, where a big face came out of something and screams at her, and it yells, "Get out of my house!" like right in her face, and we can see like the wind blowing her hair and everything when it screams at her. And she finally does the right thing, and she runs away in terror. So she runs up the stairs. Once she gets up there, she has all these photographs that she's taken since they moved in, and they're hanging up all over the house. She starts furiously gathering all the photos from the frames, and she's taking them all out. She's probably looking for something else after what she saw down in the basement. And once Ruby can kind of grab a hold of her, she tells her that the tenants are all moving out after what she did with the cars. And at this point, Leti is so upset that she blurts out that, quote, she still has some of Mama's money left. And at this point, Ruby is stunned because their mom had died and Leti didn't even come back for the funeral. Ruby had to take care of everything, so she doesn't know what Leti is talking about. Leti said that she was just as shocked when she got the call. And Ruby is really confused since her mom didn't have money. And Leti didn't really acknowledge her or even go to the funeral, so she doesn't know why, if her mom had money, it would end up going to Leti. So Leti basically calls her mom selfish, and she's like, yeah, I don't know why she would either. She was a terrible person. And she says the only reason she didn't tell Ruby is because she didn't want to hurt her. And the scene actually ends with Ruby being very hurt about all of this, realizing that she had been loaning money to Leti all this time, and now Leti gets all of the inheritance. She basically tells her, you're not a good person. If you were, you would have split it with me and your brother. And she storms off. So the scene shifts, and we now see Montrose and Hippolyta having kind of a heart-to-heart. And we learn in this moment, the one detail that I liked learning was that George's favorite book was Dracula, because Montrose picks up a copy of it that's sitting in the room that they're in, and that's the same book that she was tearing pages out of in the beginning, and there was no other reference back to it other than this, learning that it's George's favorite book. And she talks about that she spilled coffee on his copy, and that must have been the one that she was ripping up. She didn't want to tell anybody she was ripping pages out of it for whatever reason. But she does lie and say she spilled coffee on George's copy. Sorry, that's really hard to say.
It's a tongue twister.
She admits to Montrose in this moment that she doesn't believe the story that they told about George, the story just about the sheriff, and that she believes there's something more that happened and that they're not telling her, and they end up getting kind of into an argument about it. After this, day 10 flashes up on the screen in that same, black screen with the day 10, and we come back to Leti, and she's in her house at the table with papers all around her, and we find out that she's been doing some massive research on the house because she wants to find out why all this stuff is happening. She definitely feels there's some haunting going on at this point. So Tick walks in, and she decides she's going to share with him what she's found and that she believes the house is haunted. She tells him the house was called the Winthrop house, but she can't find anything under the name Winthrop. However, she did find out that the last owner was named Hiram Epstein, and that he was a famed astrophysicist who was fired from the University of Chicago for unethical experiments on people. So the astrophysicist part, Kelly, is what led me back to that gold thingy. So,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is something with him, obviously. We're related to him somehow. Maybe
it's
he's
his
part of
origin.
that Atom Society or whatever that we learned about in the last episode. But there's definitely some relation to him with that gold. Because why would they say he's an astrophysicist otherwise?
Yeah, it's his. He created the orrery.
Yeah.
It's his thing. Yeah.
Okay. So, she thinks he was using humans and that it explains the 8 bodies that were found in the basement. through her research, she keeps finding all of these photos and stories that connect the cop to this Hiram Epstein. So the guy who, the cop who told her about the house and that she should be worried about it was actually, it looks like he was friends with this Epstein guy. So she makes an assumption that she thinks that maybe the cop was supplying Epstein with bodies because there were all these missing people that nobody ever found, and they were all black folks in the area. So she's, kind of made this conclusion that this is what she thinks was going on. She also ended up finding the faces of the 8 dead people in the photos that she had pulled off the walls of the house. So not explicitly, but like there would maybe be it looks like a double vision thing on people's faces that she took photos of, but the second face is actually one of those victims that they found in the basement, or one of the 8 missing people. I think she's trying to make all these connections at the same time. Mm-hmm. So when Tick suggests maybe we should move out, I mean, seems like a good idea, right? Like maybe we should move out. She said she's felt like a ghost ever since they returned from what happened in Artem, and that she's not leaving this house. It's her house, and she's going to bring in an exorcist now. So, or somebody who can cast the spirits out. So the next scene, we see kind of a spiritualist woman coming onto the porch, and she has a goat with her that she's leading by its horns. And we all know the goat's about to get killed, because I was like, man, why do I have to watch this happen to a goat? But we did. So she's there with Tick and Leti, and she says the blood of this goat whose throat she slits will protect them. And she has a really heavy Caribbean accent. She takes the blood and actually makes a marking on Tick's head and on Leti's head and her own. And she says that this is going to protect them from whatever's in the house. So they end up taking her down to the sub-basement, and she immediately tells them to take her hands. So they form a circle, and she's offering herself as a vessel to cleanse and release the spirits in this house. She starts chanting in Creole over and over again, and we start to see glass breaking in the windows upstairs. And just when we think it's because of the chanting, we see these white guys coming in right behind the glass breaking. So we realize it's not the ghost breaking the glass, but the racist whites from out with the cars and all that. Yeah. So they're breaking in upstairs. And we're going to get shots kind of going back and forth from upstairs to downstairs at this point. So we go back downstairs, and there is a lot happening. Paranormal activity has started up. There's, swirling of stuff flying around the room, and there's lights flickering. And so all of the things that are supposed to let us know that something's going on is happening right now. When we pan back upstairs, we realize things are not going very well for the white boys. Unseen entities start tossing some of them around. Like when they try to go in one room, they get pushed onto the ground. And then this is the part that was kind of comical to me. I don't know. I couldn't get around this image, but there's a body of a large, tall, probably someone who plays basketball. I think he's wearing a basketball uniform, but it has like a little tiny baby head on it, and the baby's like making baby crying noises.
What?
I know. I think that the doctor was probably chopping people up and then putting them back together. It was like a Frankenstein.
Yeah, he was like running experiments on all of them.
Yeah,
doing different things.
That silly image. Don't you think that was kind of silly?
Yeah, it was like Shaq's body with a baby head.
It's a baby.
Baby head. I couldn't get past it. I'm sorry. Like, at that point, I was like, okay, well, they could have made it so much scarier. Maybe they needed to take some of the scariness out. I don't know, but I'll accept it. Then, one by one, the house or these spirits start killing these. Remember, and we end up finding out there's 3 of them. So the first 2 get kind of backed up by this baby-headed monster towards where the steam heater is. Remember, the boiler was having all those issues, and as they get pushed back there, the steam heater just blows up on them basically, and they end up getting kind of steamed to death almost. And then the third guy starts to go over to where the elevator is, and he pushes the button and nothing comes, so he sticks his head up to look, kind of like Leti did at the beginning. But this time the elevator shaft falls and does take his head off. Ooh. And he falls backwards, and we do see kind of like the stump of his, and this is the one, like, I'm not a gore person at all, but this one was silly to me. Like, it didn't look real. It looked kind of fake. So I even watched the blood like squirting out of the thing. It was silly. Like, it made me laugh. It was kind of like, I don't know. Was it supposed to be funny?
I don't think so.
It might now. It might have supposed to be.
I don't know.
Once that baby headed I'm telling you, it took me kind of out of it.
It took you out, yeah.
So maybe they should have gone with a different image in that moment.
I'm picturing like Toy Story where Sid did all those, funny like
Yeah.
toy
Yes.
experiments. Yeah.
That's what it kind of looks like. Okay, so downstairs, the paranormal activity starts to calm down. You know, these guys are dead upstairs. The paranormal activity calms down, and they kind of start. You get the feeling that it's over. And then all of a sudden, the Creole woman, her head comes up, and we realize she is possessed all of a sudden and it's definitely by this other entity that's there, which is that Hiram Epstein guy. And she looks scary, like her eyes turn black, and she starts kind of coming for Tick. And she's choking him, and she's gonna choke him to death because she's lifting him up off the ground and all of that. And just at this moment, Letty sees everything that's going on, and she screams at what's going on, and the entity drops Tick, and then the Creole woman falls to the floor. But we see that the entity has just passed himself over to Tick's body now. And so it's a really weird moment. We can see he's like shaking his head around, and as he shakes his head, we can see both faces, his and the other guy's, and he's like jerking his body and walking towards Letty like he's going to hurt her. And so in this moment, he starts coming towards her, and she calls out to the spirits of the black people killed there, and she urges them to fight. And one by one, we see the bloody apparitions. Some are missing limbs. It's the woman we saw in the beginning that was by her bed. It's the guy she saw in the mirror. It's the baby-headed basketball player. So there's 8 total people that end up starting to appear. And there's this spiritual song in the background, rebuking Satan, that's playing really loud. It's like a spiritual that's playing in the background for us. And then Letty and the ghosts clasp hands again in a circle, and they form a circle around Tick, / the entity, and they all began chanting in Creole again together. And in this moment, the spirit of Hiram is kind of cast out of Tick. So Tick falls to the side, and the spirit is standing in the middle of the circle, and they are continuing to chant. And as they're chanting, each of these apparitions begins to heal. We start to see what they actually looked like before limbs were cut off or body parts were changed, and they're just beautiful whole people in this moment. And while they're becoming whole, Hiram in the center starts to disintegrate. He's turning like almost like ash, and it looks like he's burning or gonna just fall apart. And with one final "get the fuck out of my house" from Letty this time, she says it to him, all the ghosts disappear. Hiram disintegrates. The house is cleared. And it's, it's kind of like that moment in Poltergeist with the house is clear. It felt like in that moment. So we immediately shift to some time later, and Letty is now in the house with a reporter, and they're talking about, her buying the home and renting it out and how it's going to be a really great thing for the community. And she asks her, she's like, I heard that 3 people went missing in this neighborhood. And, Letty kind of blows off the question initially, and she's like, well, I don't really know anything about that. And as the women step off the elevator to get together, the elevator door closes on its own, and we see the handle inside kind of turn down on its own, and the elevator goes way, way, way down. Almost it appears to be past where the actual basement was, and to a very bottom sub-basement floor. And when the doors open, we see the 3 dead bodies of those missing white men who had broken in, and their bodies are laying down there. And as it continues to pan out, we do see more bones and skeletal remains of others. So he must have had like even a deeper area where he kept most of the bones at when he was done with his experiments, and that's kind of what we see right there at the end.
Ooh.
So out in the city now, Tick is hanging out on the street, kind of looks like he's waiting for something or someone, and we do see a silver Bentley. I changed it for you, Kelly, because I think you're right about what I just didn't know what it was. A silver Bentley pull up, and that woman, I can't remember her name, but she gets out with the hat and the blonde hair, and Tick immediately goes across the street to confront her. And she's walking into this real estate business, and and it's actually the guy who sold the house to Letty, and we learned that it was actually her money and not Letty's mom. So Letty's mom didn't leave her anything. It was this lady who pretended that it was Letty's mom leaving her the money and encouraging her to buy this Winthrop house and all of this. So we learned this whole thing was kind of orchestrated, and that the original Winthrop is part of that Sons of Adam group that we learned about in the last episode. And she's talking about how everything's connected and how Hiram was part of it, and that Winthrop actually stole some pages from their book and that he was casting spells. And so she's talking about all this history, and as she's talking, Tick pulls out a gun and points it straight at her, and he tries to pull the trigger because he wants this to be over, but he simply can't. He's just trying, and he's kind of frozen in one place. And as he's frozen, she starts explaining that her father had a spell that he could never be harmed, so I'm getting the idea that maybe that's something going on with her too, but he had to take it down when he went down to try to open up the door to the Garden of Eden. She's talking about all this religious stuff that I'm still not fully understanding all the Sons of Adam stuff yet at this point, but it seems to be lore in the background that's going to keep coming up. So I think we want to pay attention. So there are pages that were stolen from the book by Winthrop, and she wants to get those pages back so that this book can be made whole again and they can have even more power. She says that she wants to make sure that Tick knows all about his family. And in that moment, she concludes with telling him to be more careful. You can't just be going around killing white women. And then she turns around and walks out. And that's the end of the episode.
Ooh.
Yep.
That was a long
And
one,
we do
sorry.
more of the lore is explained a little bit more in the one that I'll cover.
I thought so.
For
Yes,
next
I
time.
didn't want to
Yeah.
say too much because I think that you learn more then. But so even though each episode is kind of its own story, there's always this backstory weaving everything together. So I think watching the series in order is kind of important for that reason.
Yeah, it is a little bit hard since I haven't seen it to figure out how they kind of fit together because there is overlap and like kind of little cliffhangers at the end of some of these episodes, but it's like each one does feel distinctly like its own story almost, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is the blonde woman, and that's Christina Braithwaite. So we met her father was the guy who was trying to open that portal
Braithwaite, that's it.
last time, and she's kind of the thread that will connect
Yeah.
a
And
lot
the
of the
portal,
story.
they believe, is the door to the Garden of Eden, correct?
Yes.
Right.
So that's everybody was killed in that. Remember, she took off well before the building went down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah,
just-
see, like up in other states, like if you're killing, especially back in the 50s, if you're killing people or doing weird things with bodies, like you've got infinite space to hide these bones underneath your house. Like we don't have that luxury in Florida.
Oh,
It's
no.
true.
I
We
mean, down
don't.
here, you're having to like encase it in cement or something. Like just happen to put up a patio, like conveniently. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we
You
can
guys
Take
know
it
about
to
the
the
Peter
Everglades.
Strangler, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Anthony
exactly.
Sowell. Have you heard of him?
No,
Anthony
who's that?
Sowell.
Oh, if you're, I mean, talk about serial killer grossness. But so he was a serial killer in Cleveland who targeted people who were on the streets. Like a lot of times that happens, either drug addicts or prostitutes. And he would kill them in his house. And I kept wondering, why isn't he using the goddamn basement? Because he had them just laying all over his house, like decomposing. And that's
Is he
how
the
they
one that
ended up
lived with his
catching him because the
parents?
smell coming from the house was so bad that
Ooh.
the cops ended up investigating. But he had killed all these people and nobody ever looked for them. He was choosing people that he knew no one would look for.
Yeah.
So,
I think I do remember that. Yeah.
yeah.
He lived with his parents?
Is he the
No.
one that lived with his parents?
No, he had his own home in Cleveland. It was right next to this like sausage factory. So they kept explaining the smell for so long that it was coming from the sausage place next door.
Yeah.
But it was actually
Oh.
his house. So,
That makes sense because if you've ever passed a pig farm,
oh,
that is a rough smell.
I've heard that. And
Whew.
it's big in what, either
something.
North or South Carolina, right?
Oh, I don't know. I
One
don't
of-
even know
one of
where
those
they
two
are,
states
but
has the largest population of pig farms in the world, I
or
think.
pig farms.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've smelled them on some road trips, and I know distinctly when it's a pig farm versus
Ugh.
anything else. It is a very rough, distinct smell.
My
So I
dad's
could
dad
see-
raised pigs on a farm, but
Really?
I don't know if he like slaughtered them there, but I used to
Oh,
come
yeah.
home, like I would go visit on the weekends and come home with like bags of pig's teeth, and my mom would be like, "What is wrong with you?"
Oh, pig's teeth?
Because I would just find them, like in
Oh,
around the pen and stuff. I know, as a kid, I'm like, "This
Did
is
you make
so
necklaces
cool."
out of them or something? Like, what?
No, I definitely
you
didn't
keep
go
them
that
for?
far. I don't know what I did with
She was a
them.
kid. Kids think weird things are cool.
They
Oh, maybe you thought you could get money
do.
from the tooth fairy for them.
Maybe. Hey, she would have
Hey.
been like, "This is an odd shaped tooth, but it's probably worth $5."
That's great.
Oh, and to answer our question from before, them was 2021, Lovecraft was 2020.
Okay, so they were right.
Well,
They're
that came
back
first.
to back.
Yeah, back to back.
So I'm sure they were in production around this at the same time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
that's
being
interesting,
filmed.
though.
So
Huh. They reminded me of each
Yeah.
other. This episode particularly. parts of it reminded
Yeah.
me so because we had the haunting of those ghosts and them as well. There were just a lot of things that overlapped for me. But I like that. I like to compare and contrast. So I think it's good.
Yes. And I have a thing. I don't even know when it started. Like, I've always been scared of elevators killing me exactly like that. I don't know why I would ever like stick my head under one to look. Or I'm gonna like fall down an elevator shaft. And then it like heightened when Kristen had me watch that movie, I Origin. Was what it was
Oh,
called?
did you watch that?
Oh yeah, I watched it like right away when like
did
years
you?
ago
Did you
whenever
end
you
up
told me to
liking
watch
it?
it. Yeah, I liked it, but that elevator scene, I was
Oh,
like,
I'm
see, there's
sorry.
another way an elevator's
Oh,
gonna
I didn't
kill
want to
me.
warn you about that because that's kind of the big like you do not see that coming when it happens. So I didn't want to even
No,
like hint at
no.
it. So, but yeah,
But it
that
was just my
movie-
thing with elevators.
That movie was
And
so
that
like
does
slept
happen to
on.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it
That's
looks
a-
like it's so easy to happen.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
just-
at least
yeah.
it'd probably be quick.
No, not in
No?
I Origin. It wasn't.
I didn't
Oh,
know about
okay.
your,
It
yeah, I
sure
didn't know
wasn't.
about your elevator thing though, Kelly. If I would have known that, I might not have suggested
Well,
it
no,
to
I'm
you.
not. It's not like a fear. It's just like this weird, like, because so many TV shows, everybody will do it. It's just such an
Yeah.
easy like device to use of a freaky kill
Yeah.
A
that I'm just
trope, yeah.
like,
I
this
wonder
is
if
what.
it ever actually happened in real life at all. We should look
It
that
had,
up.
there
Yeah,
was
I'm
one.
certain it has.
Yeah, there was
Oh.
a story about a girl that happened to. I'm pretty sure, like not that long ago.
Oh.
I want to say it was in New York, maybe in an apartment
Oh, of
complex.
course it was.
Yeah. Well, it was nowhere you're going. Don't worry. But
No. But it's like it's always I always think of it happening because there was even a scene in Grey's Anatomy, and it did not happen in Grey's Anatomy. But like anytime someone's stuck in an elevator and they're evacuating people, I was like, this
Oh,
is what's
yeah,
gonna
that
happen
one's
because
scary.
it's gonna
Yeah.
suddenly drop.
Like while your body's
somebody's
halfway
gonna-
out, halfway in.
Exactly.
And
So
then it
I'm just staying in. Like, and there were so many people just like, no, I'm not getting out. They're like, no, you have to get out. And even though like the fire departments, they're saying we've cut the power, like everything, it's good. I'm not. No. I'm just
it's
gonna
very
plummet
Final
with this.
Destination.
Yeah.
Yes.
feeling.
All right, well, I looked it up, and there's no specific data on decapitations alone, but there's approximately 30 deaths and 17,000 injuries annually due to elevators.
Wow.
Yeah, that 17,000 that's a lot. But it's
is a
mostly
lot.
workers and people who work on them, so if that
Maybe
makes
just
you feel
falling
better.
down the shaft
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. So just never get a job as like an elevator repairman, and you'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just don't want to be evacuated from a stuck elevator ever. That just
Oh,
looks
that
like
would
the
be terrible. My
scariest
mom
thing.
got stuck
That's
in an
what
elevator once,
Oh, really?
trapped for like hours. Yeah,
Oh gosh, I can't
Yeah.
even handle it.
horrifying.
That's scary. Mhm.
That's why I used to hate going on elevators with kids because you know how they'd all be like, let's jump when it's.
Yeah.
And then,
Mhm.
I'd be like, don't, please, I'll take the stairs if you guys are going to keep doing this.
Mhm.
Let me off on the next floor.
I only have 3 floors to go up at work, but sometimes it'll like jump kind of, and I'll look at the person who's in there with me, and I'm like, that didn't feel great. Like, I know I wouldn't have far to fall, but still, I don't want to fall at all.
Yeah. That's why I did that Tower of Terror once, and
Ooh,
won't
I never
do
did it.
again.
I won't do it.
'Cause that's all it is an elevator falling.
Mhm. You're right.
Not doing it.
Not for me. Nope.
Well, thank you, Kristen, for walking us through that episode, and we'll be back with episode 4, which kind of piggybacks directly off of this one. So
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
bye.
Bye.
For more information about our episodes, follow us on Instagram at Fear and Wine Pod. And if you have a fun discussion question that you'd like for us to answer on the podcast, send it to us at fearandwinepod@gmail.com.